So, welcome to Perek Bays of Rus again. We continue on. Wow, we have a minion already, and it's only 7:02. I'm so impressed. Last night we left off. At Perek Bays Pasuk Zion. We had Rus going to the field of Boaz to go and glean, not knowing that Boaz may have had a personal relationship with Naomi, because Boaz was related to both Naomi and to Elimelech, Naomi's late husband. As we pointed out, there were a set of four brothers, and the brothers were Naomi's father, Elimelech, Naomi's uncle, who she ended up marrying, Boaz's father, Salmon, and then a guy named Ploni Almoni, who is a mystery character. We will meet him at the beginning of Perek Dalet. But in the meantime, by happenstance, coincidence, and then the Alshich and everybody else yelled, "There's no such thing as coincidence." Rus ended up in the field of Boaz, who in fact was connected to the family, but who had been keeping his distance from Naomi. Maybe because he had some sort of negative connotations attached to Naomi running away with Elimelech when the people needed her. But most of the Mefarshim say because he was in a tough situation of his own. His wife had passed away, he was sitting Shiva, and now he comes to his field and sees a strange woman there. He sees Rus HaMoabiyah. She's dressed differently than everybody else. She looks different from everybody else, and it appears, certainly, Yael Ziegler, who I love, as you know, I love her Sfarim on Megillos. It seems like they were giving her the cold shoulder, and they were sort of isolating her and alienated from her. She's a Moabiyah, she's from out of town, she came with Naomi, who we are resentful of. Not like Jews ever have factions and cliques and mean girls. No, that never happens in Judaism, except when it does. And so Rus is out there being very modest and behaving very, very well. And Boaz has a conversation with the supervisor, the manager out in the fields, saying, "Hey, who is that woman?" And the Gemara, the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yud Gimel says, did Boaz go around noticing women? And at least one Meforsh says, yeah, the Dubna Maggid says that was God acting through Boaz, having him notice somebody he would normally be careful not to pay too much attention to. But now that he has heard who Rus is, Vayomer Boaz el Rus. So we're in Pasuk Ches of Perek Beis. I just put up a link if you want the psukim on your computer or your phone, if you wish to look while we are going. If you have a book with Megillas Rus in it, that's even better. Vayomer Boaz el Rus. And so Boaz says to Rus, he speaks to her. We haven't seen Rus speak very much yet in this Megillah. She's been fairly quiet, much like Esther is fairly quiet in Megillas Esther. But she is going to answer back. Vayomer Boaz el Rus, Halo shama'at biti, listen to me, my daughter, which right away is interesting, because Naomi also called her BT in a few of the previous psukim, my daughter. There's a connection there. On the one hand, he's an older man, he's 80, so for him to call a younger woman my daughter is not, crude or anything. But on the other hand, he's instructing her in a parental way of how to become more Jewish, how to fit into the society, just as Naomi was instructing her that way. So, Vayomer Boaz el Rus, Halo shamat BT, have you not heard, my daughter? Listen to me, daughter. Al telchi lilkot b'stei acher. Do not go elsewhere to glean, where the owner may not welcome you. V'gam lo sa'avuri mizeh. And also don't leave here even for a different one of my fields to go glean. V'chosid bakin. Don't go elsewhere. Stay here. Be dovek, dvekus, clinging, cleaving. Im na'arosai, with my girls, with the girls in my field. That's actually important too. That's a little bit of tznius, but also the idea that she'll be safe where the women are working apart from the men, the Malbim says. That is important because even though it is a Jewish land and a Jewish town and a Jewish field, apparently there were immoral men out there. Not like today where all men are very, very moral. But there were men who would molest or attack or importune, their SAT word for the day, importune women with their unwanted attentions, hashtag Ruth too, and it could be a problem. And rape is not out of the question. This is the time, as Barbara said last night, of Pilagesh Begiva. So terrible things can happen to an unprotected woman alone in the midst of men, and Boaz is suggesting not. He continues, Einayich basodeh asher yiktzorun, pasuk tes, keep your eyes on the field that they are reaping. So keep your eyes on the field being reaped, which means you'll be the early bird. You'll be one of the first ones to collect from the gifts of the poor that they leave behind. V'halacht acharehen, go after them. That's the word lech twice in two psukim. Al telchi, don't go elsewhere. V'halacht acharehen, go with them. So it's a negative don't go and a positive do go. Halotzi visi es hana'arim levilti nagech, I have commanded the young men in my fields not to touch you, which might mean literally not to touch you, but also not to molest you or start up with you or aufgerate you, to use a German word from my in-law's house. Bitzamis, and if you become thirsty, v'halacht el hakelim, go to the vessels, go to the water jugs, go to the water fountain, where you can go get a drink. Another v'halach, that's 3 if you're keeping count. V'shasis me'asher yishavun hane'arim, and drink some of the water that the men have drawn. The Malbim points out, normally the poor are not invited to drink the water that the workers take for themselves. The workers take good quality water for themselves from faraway wells. They don't bring it for Stamazaya Schnurrer to come and have a drink. When you put the Schnurrer's table out at the wedding, you don't always give the highest quality food. They should be grateful for what they get. But he's telling her that she can drink some of the water that's the better water, instead of being among the poor who fend for themselves. Now, how is this gentle Jewish moral instruction? So if you put the two psukim together, the Medrash says, Al telchi lilkot b'stei acher, don't go to a different field, is the parallel to Lo yiyeh lacha Elohim acherim al panai. Stei acher is Elohim acherim. Give up your foreign gods. Lo sa'avuri mizeh, zeh keli ve'anvehu. Instead of suggesting, hang on. Let me finish. Instead of suggesting, no, shush, we're quoting a medrash on these two psukim. So instead of going out, lo savri mizeh, zeh keli ve'anvehu, stick with God. Don't leave God. Don't leave zeh. Stay with God. Sid bakinim na'arosai, stay close to my young ones. Na'arim are the tzaddikim, says the Medrash, based on a pasuk in Eov. And then, when we're talking about going to the vessels to drink, this is go to the tzaddikim to drink the mayim of Torah from them, that they are sharing with you. V'shalsis me'asher yishavun hana'arim, go to the Beis HaShoeva. Shoavin Ruach HaKodesh, says the Medrash. Usha'avtem mayim b'sason. So he, like Naomi, is guiding her into what it means to be a Jew, to listen to the tzaddikim, to try to do the mitzvos, to keep connected to everything that I am instructing you. And Naomi is telling her the same thing. Keep an eye on this, him telling her to stick with the girls, because it's interesting, tomorrow's shiur, we're going to see that she misremembers that and reports it a different way. And that's kind of important because she still hasn't shed all of her background. When one becomes a convert, it is not a smooth sail straight through to being the frommest person ever. Sometimes you have to battle your own inclinations and instincts from how you were raised. That's true for people who are from birth, as well as people who come by choosing Yiddishkeit. And so she's going to have a few slips here and there, which only makes her more human, which kind of makes this whole story very tremendous. Now, I think it was Esther who had something to say before I went crazy and shushed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was trying to figure out that plus that you were saying, don't go to a different field. And then you said, before you said Zekeli Bambehu, and I don't remember what you said.
Okay.
So you said something I want to get down in Hebrew.
Okay. But yeah, you want to try, you look in the Medrash Rus Rabbah on this pasuk. That has the whole section I quoted. Now, going on to pasuk Yud, so she has a tremendous reaction to his generosity. He says to this impoverished stranger, stay here, come to my field, I'm going to have the boys treat you well by leaving you extra food. I'm going to have them bring you water. I want you to feel safe and protected. And she says, "Vayitipol al paneha v'tishtachu arza." She falls on her face and bows down to the ground, which is unusual to do to another person. So some of the Mefarshim say she bowed down to Hashem first and thanked Hashem for showing her such kindness to direct her to such a generous man as Boaz. There is no sexual connotation here. There is no illicit relationship in the gratitude and the giving. Boaz is being genuinely generous. Ruth is being genuinely appreciative and sincere. The fact that the two of them will end up together later might seem like it was obvious from the beginning. But at this point in the beginning, when they first meet, it's not obvious at all that these two are meant to end up together. If anything, one might think that Boaz would end up with Naomi, who was part of the society and who is from his kin and who is also a widow without children left. So it could have been that such a thing could happen, especially since Boaz wasn't Naomi's brother. He was her first cousin. Their fathers were brothers. So there's no Isser. There's no Isser from the Torah for them to be together. But it's not Naomi, of course. It's Ruth. Vatomer love. And she speaks. And she says to Boaz, Madua matzasi chen be'einecha lahaki reini. Why have I found favor in your eyes? Why are you so kind to single me out, to recognize me? Lahaki reini. To take notice of me. Some say that this implies, Lahaki Reini, that she saw unconsciously that he was going to be the one to recognize her and she him, and that they were meant for each other. But it doesn't seem from the psukim like she means it that way. If it was, it's unconscious nevuah. And finally, I'll be right there in 1 second. Sidel ve'anochi nachriya. And I am a stranger, a foreigner. And you shouldn't marry me anyway because I'm a Giores. I come from questionable lineage. I am from Moab, a nation that it says in the Torah shall not enter Kahal Hashem. So Rus is really thankful, but doesn't see why he would be so generous. Somebody whose phone is ringing, if you just mute for a minute. Sidel, yeah.
Hi. Is he also being kind to her because he knows that he's a relative?
Maybe. We mentioned yesterday that he is responsible for the poor people of his own family. So maybe, but she's a Goyish daughter-in-law, so is he responsible for her? So here's an interesting thing that Dr. Ziegler says. In light of the above scenario, because I love her language, Ruth's extreme gratitude for Boaz's kindness is not disproportionate. No one has yet been kind to her in Beis Lechem. Her initial apprehensive attitude has proven to be warranted. Ruth's reference to her original words to Naomi reflect her dreadful disappointment. Ruth left Naomi with the meager hope that she would find someone in Pasuk Aleph in whose eyes I will find favor. But by the time Ruth encounters Boaz, she is amazed that anyone would treat her kindly. So she repeats her own words in astonishment. Madua matzasi chen be'einecha v'anochi nachriya. When everybody else took great pains to ostracize me and push me away, there is the implication that she may have tried other fields to glean and they wouldn't let her come in. She certainly seems to feel rejection. And it's fascinating that Rus is a book of loving kindness. Everybody calls Megillas Rus the book of chesed. But what's alarming is how many people don't show any chesed until Boaz exemplifies it and we follow his example. For all those of us nowadays in the world where we say everything is democratic and everything is about personal morality and everything is about whether I think something is justified, my colleagues, my students say you have to live your own truth. Well, the truth of the people in Beis Lechem was we don't like this woman and we don't know her at all, but we still despise her. So you can't just live your own truth. The essence of Sefer Rus is to go out of just yourself and see the other person as a person, not just as somebody worthy of kindness, but as a person. Lahaki Reini. This pasuk right here is really key. She feels like nobody has recognized her. And that's huge. That's huge. Because if your own personhood is not respected by others, how can you even go anywhere from there? End of soapbox speech about morality. I am not an ordained rabbi. I'm not supposed to give you Musar Shmuzit. Pasuk Yud Aleph, Vayan Boaz Vayomer La. So Boaz replies to her and gives her an astonishing speech. I may not be a rabbi, but it sounds like Boaz was. It's like he's getting up on the pulpit and giving a speech at the end of Shachris right before Musaf, or at the end of Musaf if you wanted to make the Kiddush Club come in for it. Sorry, joke. Boaz is trying to give a proclamation. How is it that the people take his example? Because he consciously makes an example for them to follow. That's leadership, not running away when they need you the most, like Elimelech did, but standing up and giving a stump speech. How do we know? Because Vaya'an Boaz Vayomer La. When you say Vaya'an Vayomer in Tanakh or in Chumash, that means you proclaim. It's not just saying something. It's a double saying of something, so it's meant for public ears. And so he says, Hu gade hu gad li. I have been told repeatedly, Kol asher alsis es chamosech. Everything that you did for your mother-in-law. Remember again, mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law don't always get along. There's an entire Mishnah and several blot in Yevamos, which I learned with my father-in-law, who's here, so he could tell you we learned it together, that says, if a mother-in-law comes and gives testimony that her son died so that her daughter-in-law can get remarried, we do not believe her, because she is living to destroy her daughter-in-law's life and make her have mamzerim, so that when her son comes back, she says, oh, I guess I was mistaken. Ask Camilla and Meghan Markle how they feel about each other, and it is none too good these days. Even grandmas-in-law, well, grandmas are special, but Elizabeth didn't seem to like Meghan much either. So in-laws don't always get along, but you did remarkable things for your mother-in-law, Acharei Mosi Sheikh, after your husband died. These are all the things that Naomi tried to push her away with. And you abandoned, you left behind your father and your mother and the land of your birth. Telchi again leich. Rus is proof that life is a journey. Wow, I'm turning back into Rabbi Toker again. You don't stand still. As one terrible president of Kingsborough once said at a convocation where he first met us in 2001, and he had a soprano come out and sing Climb Every Mountain. And believe me, all of us were rolling our eyes and staring at each other like this guy is crazy. He was from Denver and Texas. And he said, I'm just telling you that it says in Crane's business, if you ain't moving forward, then you're falling behind. You can't stand still. And that's the message of Sefer Rus. If you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. Byron only lasted 2 years, and then we managed to get him fired, so it worked out very well for us. But I actually still remember him saying that, and it's the truth. You have to be telech. You have to be on a journey. Who else did this? Lech? Avraham Avinu in Lech Lecha. And the Mefarshim all say, she is doing what Avraham Avinu did. She left behind her mother and her father, her homeland, converted and followed Hashem. But she gets more credit, because Avraham Avinu was commanded to leave and be a stranger in a strange land. She was not commanded. She did it because she had an inner awakening that drew her to Judaism and Eretz Yisrael, even when she was shunned by most Jews. From Jews never shun the outsider. It never happens. But once in a while, maybe we're a little careless. It sounds like with Rus, we may have been more than that. But so she's been kind to her mother-in-law, even though that relationship is usually poisoned. No offense to those of you who love your daughters-in-law or mothers-in-law. Her nobility of character by treating Naomi so well, despite her own devastating loss of losing her husband. Chesed shel emes, doing good for the dead by caring for their relatives after they're gone. And surely the Medrash says she was probably pretty great to him during his lifetime. So I've heard these things. Asher lo yadam etmol shel shalom is an interesting phrase. What the Medrash says about this, and the Mefarshim agree, is that the new law of Moavi velo Moaviyah, it was a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. A Moabite man, the Torah says, cannot convert to Judaism. But Moaviyah, Moabite
And
women can convert to Judaism. Moabi men are excluded, velo Moabiyah, but that halacha l'Moshe Missinai was forgotten. And now Boaz republicized it just a few days before Rus arrived. So Mitzmol, hang on. So Mitzmol, 1 second. So Mitzmol Shilshom, yesterday and the day before, the halacha was not widely known that a Moabiyah could come in. But that means that when Rus came to convert, she didn't know she would be accepted because she left home before the halacha was widely known. But she's here anyway, out of faith and devotion to Hashem, not just caring for Naomi, not for an ulterior motive, but because of her devotion to God. And that right there is a beautiful thing, which makes Rus even more special than Avraham Avinu, which is astonishing, as they say, mind-blowing, and which is what makes you what they call her in the Mefarshim and in the Medrash, the Aim Malchus, the mother of royalty. Rus, the Moabiyah of lowly birth, compared to us great Jews, is going to be the mother of royalty. And all of the wealthy Geveret in the world do not have David HaMelech coming from them. Yes, Barbara, shoot.
No, you were freezing up and I couldn't hear every other word, so I just wanted you to repeat. You said what he said the other day, and I couldn't hear what you said.
So sorry, but it will be available on YouTube because my recorder is here, not on Zoom. Weiter gegangen, Yud Beis, says Boaz again. He's public speaking now. He is, like me, projecting loudly to a large audience. Yeshalim, he's talking to the reapers. Don't fear the reapers. Sorry, Blue Oyster Cult is in my head this week every time I say reapers. That is a very old, bad, but kind of cool song from 1976. 78? And Boaz is speaking to the reapers, to Beis Lechem, to the onlookers, to the other women. Yeshalim Hashem pa'alech. May Hashem reward your deeds. Usihi maskur teich shalema. And may you have incredible full sechar, complete sechar, maskur teich. The Malbim says, a poel is an artisan who is paid by the project, by the work of art. A socher is a worker paid by the hour. Rus is both. She'll be paid for every minute of effort she put in, and she'll also be repaid for the great, glorious action as a whole that she has performed on behalf of Naomi. And her payment will be shalem, full in Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. So he's really giving her a huge bracha. Me'im Hashem Elokei Yisrael, from God the Lord of Israel, Asher bas lachasos tachas kinafav, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. There are other beings with wings in spirituality. Chayos, seraphim, keruvim, but God's wings surpass even those. One last thing, and then I'll get to Sidel. There's kind of a sing-song rhythm that shows that this is a Dr. Seuss speech. Every word ends with eich. Chamos seich, I sheich, I meich, moladatech, pa'alech, maskur teich. It's almost like Nirtza at the end of the Seder, where you adir hu. And that's intentional. He wants everybody to hear and to remember what he's saying. Yeah, Sidel, you had a hand moving.
Just at this point, though, he himself has not taken responsibility.
Correct. He is offering generosity of a minimal effort to him because she can pick up the gifts to the poor and he'll make sure there's a little extra. So she's the schnorrer lady in shul and he gives her $5 instead of $1. Like the wonderful Michael Moskowitz, who always adds a little extra to everybody who comes to davening to collect. But the rest of us just plunk in our dollar and we're done. Boaz has yet to really go above and beyond. Yes. He hasn't done that yet. He will, but he has to be brought to it too. So it's interesting. Rus is on a journey from non-Jewishness to being a full-fledged Jewish woman and the mother of nations. Naomi is on a journey from bitterness to reconciliation with Hashem, let alone her family. Boaz is on a journey from initially being a little small-handed, generous, but minimally, to, as somebody once said to me on Purim, it's not enough just to write a check. You have to put some of yourself into it. You can't just write the check. Boaz right now is just writing the check, although he's doing everything he can to get her socially accepted. Everybody's on a journey. Everybody's growing. Even the reapers, even the Na'ar is growing, where he starts off a little sarcastic, but maybe ends up understanding something more. Sefer Rus teaches us all to grow. To stop growing is to die, to stand still. And there's always growth possible even when you're 80 years old. You may only have one night left, but we'll get to that later. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vatomer, she answers this remarkable speech, and she says, Emtzachein be'enecha Adoni ki nichamtani. You are most kind, my Lord, my master, to comfort me. Comfort? What did he say that was comforting? So the Vilna Gaon says, he said, you're under the wings of Hashem. It's comforting to know that Hashem is looking out for me. The Targum says, it comforts her to know that even though she's a Moabiyah, a Moabite woman, she's welcome to enter the Kahal Hashem. That's comforting. V'chi dibarta al leiv shifchasecha. And you spoke gently and to the heart of me, your maidservant. Shifcha is a very low level. Amma is a higher level. Sorry, the kids are out in the driveway. They're having a big Lag BaOmer barbecue, but while it's still Lab BaOmer, they were playing loud music. I convinced them to turn it off till 7:30. So in 1 minute, when the music gets loud, that might be our cue that we're almost done. But the idea that she's a shifcha instead of an amma ivriya is a higher level than a shifcha knainis. So she's very, very humble. Even though he singled her out, even though he gave her attention, even though he promised her extra that nobody else is going to get, she still thinks of herself as a shifcha. Even though I am not even as worthy as one of your actual servants. So she still feels alienated. She still feels excluded. But maybe some of that comes from the inside. She's excluding herself. She's not comfortable. If you don't grow up if you're a Baal Tshuva, I've had different Baal Tshuva describe this to me. You never feel like you get it. You never feel like you're on the inside. And in the meantime, the FFBs are, as the Gemara says, jealous of the Baal Tshuva because we can't stand in the footsteps of a Baal Tshuva because we haven't accomplished half of what they've done. The amazing work of bringing oneself to Hashem, that's a huge project that people who didn't ever try hard might not get. Lech v'dibarta al lev shifchasecha is another phrase. Al lev, v'dibarta al lev. Yosef HaTzadik uses that after Yaakov Avinu dies, when his brothers are worried he's going to take long-awaited vengeance on them. It says, Vayedaber el libam. He spoke to their hearts. So it implies a degree of sincerity and protection and sustenance. Yosef was going to feed his brothers and their children. Boaz is going to feed Rus and her dependents, who is Naomi. Or in the Shabbos Nachamu Ami, it says in that parsha, if we hold on until August this year, it says, Daber al Lev Yerushalayim, speak to the heart of Jerusalem, which launches the Nichum Haftaros, the comforting Haftorah. So Daber al Lev means offering comfort and redemption. Boaz is redeeming Rus, literally as well as figuratively. But Rus is going to redeem Klal Yisrael. Because if you think about it, the Mashiach and David HaMelech will come from Rus. We need that redemption too. Finally, let's just wrap it up with Pasuk Yud Daled. Vayomer lo Boaz. And so Boaz says to her, let's see, 15 through, what do we got tomorrow night? 22, 23? Let me just scroll. Let me see if I should try to stuff it in here.
What? You want to know where it ends?
23. So maybe we won't stuff it in here. Maybe we'll stuff it in tomorrow night. So tomorrow night we might go 5 minutes overtime, but today we're going to wrap it up with only 2 minutes overtime. We'll start tomorrow from Pasuk Yud Daled.